Hi, everyone. Welcome to Humans on the Verge podcast. This is episode 10. Wow, this is episode 10. Just want to take a moment with that. You know, we humans, we just go along and kind of do, and we don't take some time to pause, and reflect. And just that moment just hit me of like, oh, I need to really honor that I've done, this is my 10th episode. And in a world where you go on podcast apps and see other people have hundreds, if not thousands of episodes, 10 can feel relatively minor, not such a big deal. But this is not a competition. I have to remind myself of that every day. So welcome to the 10th episode. Today I'm going to, as you know, this is my Ponderama episode, and the last person I spoke with was Kim Hermanson, who has written a beautiful book called Deep Knowing. She has quite a few books, but this Deep Knowing book is the one that introduced me to her approach to the deep imagination and working with the deep imagination. And you know that a lot of the conversation here so far with Humans on the Verge has been around that. We've had quite a few conversations, one with Kim, one with Stephen Eisenstadt, about how we work with these parts of ourselves that aren't visible because they're in the deep imagination. So today I just wanted to jump in kind of a unique way to unpack the invitation and the encounter into the deep imagination. And what I did was I just followed my intuition. You know, so much of our day-to-day life, we use the kind of strategic, organized thinking brain. Some people call that the left brain, which is, thank God we have that, right? I talk about that all the time. It's important to have that part. But I find that when I try to approach something like this podcast, or anything I've been invited into or create to express out into the world, if I only use my kind of standardized thinking brain, I get into that competitive mindset. I get into that overthinking mindset. I get into the success or failure mindset. And then I freeze. I'm a person who seems to be affected by being rather performative in the world. And what does that word mean, performative? From a psychological point of view, it means that I feel like I have to perform to be enough. I can't just be myself and follow my organic inklings, intuitions, urges, that I need to live up to these external standards that we have. And I'm not saying that all external standards are poor or bad or wrong. I'm just saying that for many of us who have issues around perfectionism, especially, or low self-worth issues where we're always not feeling like enough, which is kind of the other side of is part of perfectionism. This performative way of being can really be a fucking drag on life. Let's just put it that way. Because we're constantly comparing ourselves. I'm constantly comparing myself. I mean, my God, you guys. I remember it's probably about 20 years ago when it came to me, this image of like realizing that my idea of success was only going to be met if like thousands of people were stomping their feet and chanting my name, like I had heard as a child when my dad was at Carnegie Hall and I was backstage and he was waiting to go on. Like, that's an impossible standard, and it's not my life. That was my dad's life, and he didn't make that his goal. That just happened to him in an organic moment of 1972 counterculture love. But this was a thing that I put on me. And so this image I have of that is I had to really see it and really see how ridiculous it was and how unorganic it was. So what I did today was or actually a few days ago when I knew I was going to do this episode, was I grabbed Kim's book, Deep Knowing, and I just kind of opened it to a couple of different places. There's always a portal in. There's always a portal in if we let ourselves kind of open to the conversation. A portal in could be just opening a book to a word or seeing an image or working with images in other ways. And we'll talk a little bit about that today. And what happened is I came upon her quoting a David Whyte poem, and she just quoted one little line of it. And David Whyte is one of my favorite poets. If you don't know him, he's, I believe, Welsh-Irish, and just as a gem of a human being, a gem of a soul. I may have mentioned him before on the podcast. And so I decided that I would start with this poem, the whole poem. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just go beat by beat into it. And I'm going to talk about how I sit with each beat and how it reflects what an encounter with a deep imagination is like. So here we go. The poem is called Sweet Darkness. And like I said, it's by David Whyte. When your eyes are tired, the world is tired also. When your vision has gone, no part of the world can find you. Time to go into the dark where the night has eyes to recognize its own. There you can be sure you are not beyond love. The dark will be your home tonight. The night will give you a horizon further than you can see. You must learn one thing. The world was made to be free in. Give up all the other worlds, except the one to which you belong. Sometimes it takes darkness and the sweet confinement of your aloneness to learn anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you. That last few lines, those were the lines that Kim had put in her book. To learn anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you. That's a huge invitation right there. And a terrifying one on some level. And an exciting one too, of course. So I'm going to break this down a little bit and talk about kind of what each little line or stanza evokes in me and unpack it through both my personal lens, but also through that depth psychology lens, that one that sees deeper into the whole conversation of psyche, of our lives, how we are part of a rhizomic network of intelligence and life force. So the poem starts with, when your eyes are tired, the world is tired also. Who we are, how we are, affects how we take in the world around us. It changes our lens. And you all know this. You all know that you can be in one mood in the morning and another mood in the afternoon and be encountering either a person or a task, and your perception changes about them, that your internal world affects the outer world. And so much, we know this. We know this so well, but we don't take it as seriously as I wish we would. I mean, I always think about athletes, right? And these coaches they get, these psychological, sports psychologists that work with them. And this is what they're working on, is their mindset. How do they see the moment? Who's doing the thinking within them? So when your eyes are tired, meaning when I can't take it anymore, when we are out of kind of ways of seeing things that are in a generative way, when we start to fall into despair or nihilism, we lose some kind of grounded hope. We no longer can see the big picture. And so, what happens in us is it's that this bias in us, how we are feeling, what mindset we're stuck in, what perspective we're stuck in, is a bias that makes the world fit into our predetermined story about it. And think about how we encounter the news these days. We all have our own predetermined story about it, and how hard it is to walk away from that and walk away from the kind of predetermined narrative that happens. And sometimes that story is rooted in our own biological cognitive makeup, like our own kind of confirmation bias is what they call it. There's a lot of other kind of biases, or our childhood conditioning, which is a huge part of how we see the world, or just how we're shaped by modern society, right? So when our eyes are tired, when our eyes can only see through one way and is kind of stuck in a way, we can only see the world in that way. When our eyes are tired, it's telling us what's relevant, what's essential and necessary, even though those things are just one of millions of things that could be relevant and essential and necessary. And so then the next line is, when your vision has gone, no part of the world can find you. Again, underlining in bold the first line. You're stuck. The world cannot find you. No part of the world can find you. You are lost. You are lost inside of this mindset. What we can't see, or even more so, what we won't see, refuse to see, pretend is not worth seeing, limits the world we get to live in, limits the choices we put on the table for ourselves, and limits what we will see as true and real and as our ally. And we're not letting in information from the world. No part of the world can find you. The world is always here. I always think about nature is always here to be our ally, to show us beauty, to show us the way forward, to show us how connected we are, to show us that even after a horrific fire that has burned two cities in my city, Los Angeles, I drove through the Palisades the other day, but on the hills, the green of Topanga, Malibu, Palisades, the green is coming back right away. There are branches sprouting out of trees that look dead. There's always, the world is here to show us who we are. We are part of it. So then David turns with this line. Time to go into the dark, where the night has eyes to recognize its own. So here we are invited to take the elevator down into the soul level, into the deep imagination level, into the parts of psyche that our day world does not afford us and does not prioritize. Here we are being invited to and evoked to go into a place where our perceptions widen, where we get to open ourselves up to ways of knowing that aren't sourced through the computational modern world or the collectively agreed upon definitions or conditions. It's the place where you get to trust something else and see something else, where we get to recognize its own, right? Where the night gets to recognize its own. It's it's that place that Mary Oliver talks about in, I think it's her journey poem, might be Wild Geese. It's the place where your soft animal body lives. She has this line in her poem. It says, "Let your soft animal body love what it loves." So this is where the body comes in. The body. This supposedly untrustworthy thing, according to many religions, right? This is where our instincts and intuitions and our somatic wisdom comes in. And David's next line is there. So there in that place where we go down into, there you can be sure you are not beyond love. This is a place of belonging. And this is a place where many of us don't know how to move into this interior space where we belong. We have been taught to look outside of ourselves to where we belong. This is a big part of what therapy is initially for those who seek through depression or anxiety or other mental health disorders. One of the reasons we have those symptoms is because we do not feel like we belong in this body or in our own life even. And so our nervous system is activated by that. And depression and anxiety, which is not necessarily evoked from the world outside. I mean, it is, but it's an interior state of not belonging. And so many of us in our childhood had experiences where we were asked to kind of leave our organic place in our life or our organic phase of life in order to step up, in order to survive. I can only speak for myself, but I was parentified very early as a child. I was an only child, and my parents were teenagers on some level. I mean, they were in their early 20s when they had me, and then even moving through the first 10 years of my life, they were playing. My dad was a child artist, and my mother was wrapped in a little bit of her addictions, a lot of her addictions, but I was pulled out of my childhood innocence and had to step into this other role. And something like that, some sort of, way in which even school, not my school, but for some of you, maybe school or church or a traditional way of life that maybe your parents had, or even if they had a full-on counterculture way of life. It's not accommodating our organic way of belonging to ourselves. Very few of us got a whole upbringing where we were honored in some organic way. My parents did the best they could with that, and I know that a lot of my life has been about recovering that, because I know they did a good job of that. It's just that I was so busy making peace all the time that I think I forgot about that belonging. So this is a place that is not beyond love. So this is the self-love place. This is the unconditional acceptance place. And so many people I work with are just, can come to me and not be able to connect to that place yet. And it does take time. It takes time to learn how to be with ourselves unconditionally. But this is even bigger than just the relationship with ourselves. This is also really belonging to love with a capital L, that place on the planet, that way of being as a human in a living system where we all belong on some level. And so the next line is, the dark will be your home tonight. The dark will be your home tonight. For many of us, the dark does not feel like home. The dark is terrifying. The dark is where all the shadowy stuff is. The dark is where we are afraid we are going to plummet down into the center of hell forever. The dark is where we feel like our depression or our grief or even our rage will capture us and we will not recover, we will not return. And that is a fear of the ego, and that is fine. But also it is not the story, the whole real story of it all. So much of that has been plugged into our minds and our narratives about humans through stories of duality, of good versus evil. We've villainized the dark. We've made the dark a negative space. There's a great essay about this by James Hillman, where he talks about the archetype of black. And so this home in the dark feels terrifying, and yet it is in the dark where we are allowed to shut down or turn away from our more logical, conscious mind and allow for the place where the deep imagination gets ignited. I'm thinking of night dreams, where we sleep at night and we go into this mysterious mindset, and these dreams come, and these stories come, and these images come. We go into the depths. Makes me think of Dante's Inferno, how he must go down into the depths of hell with Virgil, his guide, in order to reap the treasure to come up to go to Paradiso. This is the dark night of the soul sometimes. This can also be part of that. But if we are willing to sit with what makes us uncomfortable, if we are willing to sit with the places that scare us, like Pema Chodron talks about, you will find treasure. Because you will, first of all, see that you will survive whatever feeling or emotions you're having, or even the thoughts that you don't have to act on. But also under there, if you're willing to open up and relax, this is where the figures can come, the images can come. Partly what Kim and I talked about in the last episode, and certainly what Stephen Eisenstadt and I talked about in the dream tending stuff. So letting ourselves be dark dwellers, let ourselves be ones who can move and shift from the light to the dark, from the consciousness to unconsciousness, from the upper world to the lower world. This is the role of the psychopomp. This is the world of the shaman. And we all have this ability inside of us, this shamanistic ability to move into a space where language doesn't always rule, that it's more somatic understandings or images, senses, sensing things. And so the next line is, the night will give you a horizon further than you can see. And the you he's talking about here is the ego self, the upper world self. The night, the deep imagination will give you new eyes to see that are actually your oldest eyes. They are the eyes of soma, somatic knowing, the realm of intuition, a deeply connected intelligence, a way of being connected to information gathering that all living systems have, but we have forgotten, or we have downplayed, or we have even made fantasy or magical thinking by people who are too obsessed with the material world. There's a whole non-material way of being that you are 24/7, you guys. It's this sensation, and it's perspective taking, and it's all these things. John Vervaeke, I know I've mentioned him before here. His series, Waking from the Meaning Crisis, he talks a lot about this, how we are split off from this aspect. He's this brilliant cognitive scientist. He studies human cognition, human knowing, ways of knowing. This is the way of knowing, right? So the night will give you a horizon further than you can see. This ability and this willingness to pause, to go into the body, to feel images, to feel into sensations. And images don't necessarily mean pictures. They can mean sensations too. Some people don't think in pictures. Some people or don't see imaginally in pictures. So then David's kind of unpacked for us like the realm of where we need to go. And then he kind of gives us a calling. He calls us from the beyond. He calls us forth. And he says, you must learn one thing. And I'm like so relieved when I hear that. Oh, only one thing? Thank God. Because, man, the world's always telling me that I need to learn everything. But isn't it lovely when we can just say, okay, this one thing. So then we lean forward, right? What's the one thing? The world was made to be free in. Like that's the one thing. The world was made to be free in. Just let that sit for a moment. Imagine that to be true. Let's make that true right now for ourselves. The world was made to be free in. Again, go back to the organic nature of life and life systems here on the planet. We are a part of the living world. We are interdependent with it. We are co-arising with the phenomena in each moment. What does that mean, Kelly? It's kind of a big Buddhist kind of a concept, but it's also like quantum physics-y, as the quantum physics kind of catches up with the Buddhist thought, and vice versa. Look at nature again. It's co-arising. It's not, a plant doesn't just do it on its own. Plant needs the soil, it needs the sun, it needs the rain, it needs the air. All of that is co-arising. And the plant is giving all of those things something back also. It is a mutual relationship. Mutual co-arising is happening. And you can feel it if you let yourself spend enough time in nature, which I'm excited about summer because we get to do more of that. But you feel that when you take a walk, when you go camping, when you, like I was a few weeks ago at Ghost Ranch in northern New Mexico for 5 days and got to just be outside of the culture and be surrounded by powerful, powerful landscape. You start to feel how you are part of the conversation. And if you can't feel that, I invite you to let yourself open to the possibility of that next time you're in nature. Go spend time being with a tree or some flowers or watching birds, and just seeing what your body feels like when you're there. So the world was made to be free in. And then here we are as humans. We have this amazing brain where it creates a lot of limitations. It creates a lot of rules, regulations. But most of it has to do with cooperation. At least that's how it all started, right? Humans cooperated in order to survive. That's what gave us an edge over the animals and over the apex predators above us. We were able to organize through language and cooperation in order to not be eaten and to move into planning how to plant things like that. So the world was made to be free, and in cooperation is a big part of that. And even competition too. That sense of competition, that edge of that, that's part of what we have the ability to do. But imagining if you just let that be your mantra for this week or this month. The world was made to be free in. How it opens your mind and how it relaxes your body and your nervous system. And so then, David, again, this is another call to our higher way of living. Give up all the other worlds. Give up all the other worlds except the one to which you belong. Now, from a cynical point of view, that can sound like, oh, well, that's just being in a silo on your social media account. That's tribalism. That's not what he's talking about, people. He's talking about the big conversation here. The big conversation of life. And this is where I find myself daily and have really since my mother died. I mean, probably my whole life, you guys, but when my mother died in 97, I was called to this bigger world. Something woke up inside of me and I felt the deep connection of the communal space. I mean, like right away, I felt at one with everything, had a powerful spiritual awakening of transcendence. And of course, that wears off. So I kept seeking it and have found it through different places, Buddhism, going to Pacifica, studying depth psychology, being in a collective community there, those of us who do this work. But even graduating from that and all of that, I still wasn't living fully in it. And then my dad dying and like showbiz and dad stuff and fame and getting to be an artist on a stage, like all that kind of took over my life for about 7 or 8 years, which was magical and I loved it. But it also kind of put me in a different mindset. I wasn't fully connected and didn't feel like I was fully expressing myself in the world. I was still playing a game, still being performative on some level. And then, slowing down and getting to build this business where I get to, and I say the word business, I hate, the word doesn't really fit what it is, but it is. It is a way I do my work in the world, where I get to help people slow down and get to know themselves and feel like they belong to themselves, and also get to use these ways of seeing and going into our shadow side and the unconscious, doing all the work of the unconscious and things like that, the shadow stuff, but being in community. But then recently, with this quote unquote identity crisis that I'm in, this, again, reshuffling of my identity and really asking myself, I just had my birthday on June 15th, turned 62. How do I give up all the other worlds except the one to which I belong? How do I drop even more of the worlds that I don't belong to now and stay in the body and the perspective and the open mind and the open heart of the world that I belong to, which is one that feels really belonging to every living thing? Such a big certainly sense of this planet and nature and beyond human, animals, plants, the living systems. And at times that widens out even to a cosmology of belonging. We're on a big ride here. My dad, he used to use the term the big electron, which I think is really such a great term because it's got the word big in it, and then it's got electron, which is an electron is both the smallest, not the smallest, but one of the smallest parts of the units of the universe, but it also is electron. It's about charge, energy, right? It's where matter and energy kind of meet. And so it is this big understanding that there's some sort of material, energetic something going on here. And so wanting to really belong to that place. And I guess that's part of what becoming, as one enters their elder years, 60 doesn't feel elderly, but at the same time, I feel like I'm done being, warrior, must go out, must achieve, all that stuff. I talked about that in the last Ponderama a bit. And so inviting you to give up all the other worlds except the one to which you belong. Whatever that means to you right now, that might be your creative side that wants to invite you into belonging to it. It might be that you want to step out of the roles that you've been in your whole life. Maybe you're a parent and the kids are gone. You're empty nesting and you get to expand yourself. Maybe you've been in a career and there's a larger world that nature calls you, the world that creativity calls you, the world that expression calls you. Or maybe it's a cause. You want to stand up for the immigrants that are being unfairly, ridiculously targeted and attacked and their lives torn apart. Or maybe it's an ecosystem, or maybe it's something else. Freedom of speech. I don't know what it is, but it's a cause bigger than us in a world where we believe that it's a large world where people belong and all sorts of living things belong. And so at the end, David says, sometimes it takes darkness and the sweet confinement of your aloneness to learn anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you. And I'm going to read that again. Sometimes it takes darkness and the sweet confinement of your aloneness to learn anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you. So sometimes that disruption in our life, sometimes that depression, sometimes that panic attack, sometimes that rage lets us know it's a symptom, it's a signal from the psyche saying there's some way in which life is too small for you right now. Your role is too small. I don't mean you have to have a bigger role, you have to run for president, but it's too confining. It's a wake-up call, is what it is. And I've been looking at my life lately and trying to look at how our culture has turned. Well, first of all, there's the whole turning of the culture the last 10 years. Logan, my trusty and fabulous producer, and I were talking about that before we started recording here today. Just this unraveling of our current systems of modern life in America that we knew were broken. But just also my day-to-day choices, especially around technology. I have to say that really, since 2008, since we got the smartphones, the last 17 years, that world is too small for us. It's too small for me. I go on to the mindless distraction of life through technology or media, social media, just our phones in general, games even. I like my games, but games, the daily collective drama, the narcissistic power structures, the flatland of doom, the nihilism, the concretization of reality and life, that there is no inner life, and inner life is just bullshit. That's from the materialists or the very, very aggressive materialists or sometimes atheists. But it's not allowing us to stop and pause in that darkness and sweet confinement of our aloneness that is a necessary part of being human. It's how we cycle in and out of change. It's how we know change is coming. It's how we know how to resource ourselves through change and transformation. All these things, and I'm going to repeat them, our phones, the media, social media especially, the narrative that modern life gives to us is keeping us from our ability to source what is actually wanting to support life now. And that is your inner life. That is your ability to connect to your deep imagination, to the collective imagination, to source from nature, from ways in which we are all interdependent and mutually co-arising. It's too noisy to hear any of that information. And so this anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you. That's what I'm talking about, because all those things I listed deaden us. They deaden our senses. They deaden our hearts. They deaden our true ability to think. They are deadening our brains. They have deadened our connection with each other. They are deadening our children's minds and our teenagers' emotional ability to cope and learn how to cope. And they are deadening us at the end of the day when all we can do, and trust me, I am guilty of this too, scroll through endless cute animal pictures, which do for a moment connect us to something. What do those animal pictures connect us to? If we let them, our hearts open. Oh, the oxytocin, the mothering part of us. Oh, connect, love, cherish. And I won't even talk about the doom scrolling, how that deadens us and makes enemies of everyone with everyone. So the invitation is to find what brings you alive, what widens the world so that it brings you alive. And this is where we get to go below the conditional, the manufactured, the bifurcated, to find what is true, good, and beautiful for ourselves, for each other. That is the shared reality underneath all of this noise. This is where the soft animal body knows what it loves. This is where we come back to our bodies and honor the urges inside of us and the images and the intuitions and follow them and see where they take us and pay attention to the synchronicities. What's showing up? Who's visiting now? As Stephen Eisenstadt would say, who's visiting now? I think about that last line and I see a plant moving toward the space, like imagining a plant. Oh, right? You guys, like the plant in the highway that like grows out of a crack. Somehow a seed got in there, right? But a plant knows to move towards the space that has more light, more soil, more damp, or whatever conditions it needs to thrive. it knows how to find what makes it feel alive. And not in some addicted way, and not some dopamine addicted way of thrill or adventure or, gotta feel that dopamine level. This is it's a feeling of wholeness. It's a feeling of being connected, belonging, and able to expand at the same time. So that is my Ponderama for this month. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for being here. I so appreciate your time and attention. I never take it for granted. I'm honored that you are here and take some time out of your week, your day, to plug in here and check in. And I hope that what I bring and what I brought today is some good food for your heart and your soul that feeds you in some way and that allows you to find your own place of belonging, and also to help you live into this notion of honoring the things and the people that bring you alive. To turn yourself towards that light from the dark aloneness, right? So we're in the dark and we connect to that. And then we get to, like a plant, come up and find the light, heliocentric. And as we are moving into the summer solstice, this is the time of the light, you guys. The next 3 months, we are in summer. Now, of course, we are slowly going to be losing the light. So this is midsummer, the solstice, right, is the height of the longest day of the year. But letting this opportunity, especially these next 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks, as we move June and July and August, into those summer months, letting ourselves find what brings us alive, what makes us feel alive, finding those spaces. And if you are wanting to continue this conversation with me, if you have questions, if you have answers, if you have your own way of doing this work, if you're curious about how to apply this to your own life, how to learn to hold space for yourself in the many ways I talk about here on this podcast, I am super excited to let you know that I have created something called the Soul Tribe, which is for podcast listeners. And it is a monthly community call in my Humans on the Verge space online. So it's all online, where we unpack the topic from the month before. And we have conversations and discussions. I can answer some questions. I can give you more resources. And you can certainly check out the resources that I offer to do this work. But there's so many ways to do this work at so many different levels. You can read a book from someone. You can take a class. You can be in a group. All sorts of things. So if you're interested in that, please go to the show notes. There will be a link for that, the Soul Tribe, for the podcast. And we would love to see you. I would love to meet you. I would love to see your face on a Zoom call. I'd love to see your face in person. So that would be wonderful. Also, I'm going to be traveling a lot of different places in the next 3 months. So maybe I will see you in person. If you're interested in what I'm up to, you can go to my website, humansontheverge.com. There's lots of information there. And there also is information about the tribe call for the podcast. So you guys have a great day. Have a great week. Have a great weekend. Whatever you're doing, have a great month. I will speak to you directly again in about a month's time. Like I said, I am traveling. Podcast schedule is going to get a little wonky in July, but that's okay. We're all in summertime mode. I hope you're outside and doing what makes you feel alive. Thanks for being here. And thank you, Logan, for supporting this podcast and being such a great partner.